welcome folks to the second session at Jim Cochran's house. Welcome to this session of the 2020 DFW Solar Tour. We're the North Texas Renewable Energy Group, which means we're the local chapter of the Texas Solar Energy Society. We've organized or run this solar tour in conjunction with the American Solar Energy Society for the past 11 years, although this is our first virtual tour. And I make sure to thank our sponsors, especially our Terawatt sponsor, Dallas College. And I want to thank all our homeowners and the folks from NT-Reg who have put this tour on. And I want to thank the people who are attending this meeting, who are mostly the folks that put the tour on, for spending your time here today. As you guys know, this is a 30-minute session, although I don't think there are any more sessions until 1. So if we get locked up in a discussion, that's fine. We can go a little late. We have a small group, so there's not necessarily a need to mute your microphone unless you think there's going to be some background noise. And of course, you can use the chat box if you want to ask a question or just speak. And just a reminder to everybody, this meeting is being recorded. And I will hand it off to Jim Cochran so he can talk about his new solar system. Hi, Jim.
Hello. You can put the fact sheet for me there again for the guy people can see.
Make sure to not end the meeting accidentally.
Yeah.
Got it?
Good. I guess for anyone who's watching now here, this is just a quick review of what I installed. You know, you see the utilities Encore, who we have here in Texas. I went with Green Mountain Energy when I switched over to get net metering, which I can talk about real quick. And Good Faith Energy was the company that did the install. Now, basically everything came about putting on solar panels basically due to an act of God. So you could say God led me to solar panels, because a storm came through and it ripped out 2 trees and smashed up the limbs out of the front yard. And so I went from having a much more open, you know, sunny house than I had before. And needless to say, one of the trees came smashing through the roof. And so with the help of the insurance company, I had to put on a new roof. And so in the process, I remember sitting out there with the guy, the roof saw, thinking, we're going to put solar panels on this thing, you know. And it was kind of like no, yeah, okay. And so I started doing an investigation, and basically, make a long story short, I just took off with a life of its own, and I put them on. And when it was all done, I thought, I can't believe I did this. I mean, usually I freak out for a big, expense, and that's like, well, it's like, so I didn't think about it, but I went through, and to be honest with you, everything just fell right into place and worked out great. Some of it, I think, due to me, because I did my research and things right, and some of it was just, I have to also admit that my installer was really good. They did a lot of stuff on there and took care of a lot of things, even though I stayed on there, yelled at this, well, you've done this yet, done that yet? So I'm sure they got tired of hearing me bicker and moan about it. But one thing I did a lot of research at first so I could get familiar with things like string technology or micro inverters and stuff, and the panels and all of it. So I just had a working knowledge of what the system would be. So basically,
Jim, just some people, when they have a big question about how many panels they should get. And, it's like, what made you decide to get the size system that you chose?
Well, after doing some research and figuring out what a panel is, 330 watts, and like, oh, the more panels you get, the more, so I did that thing. I sat down and I pulled out, with Reliant that I was on at the time, I pulled out my history for 3 years, and I looked at how much energy usage I was using with the charts, in the summer, and I averaged it out over the entire years, multiplied that back against, okay, you have what's called peak hours, the number of hours during the day in which you get the best sun, and multiply that against how many panels I would need to come up with a number that would carry me through for the whole year. Basically, I'd get extra electricity in spring, I would use my credits in the summertime, and I would want to break even at the end of the year. So I had to go back, and I went back to 3 years of history looking at everything I was doing and basically seeing how much energy I needed. Mm-hmm. And that's how I came up with configuration. I think for 16 to 18 panels, Good Faith recommended 18. And after we got started, I said, well, let's add 2 more. I went 20. I want to be sure I can compensate for shade a little bit on one side or the other, and just, a little bit extra.
And just roughly, what's the square footage of your house?
house is about 1800, it's 1756. So, and all these panels went on the south roof. I had a south side roof. And because, but I did two trees, big trees up on the side. I did have to take out two Bradford pear trees that had kind of grown their time, and I cut those out. So I did a little trimming back here and there. I didn't do too much cutting the live oaks. I love those, but I did trim out a little bit, cut the tops a little bit off. And so I found that basically with I've been able to get enough credits that I barely even had to use the credits in summer. Obviously, I was making credits. So I have a $200 credit on my electric bill. Now, that being said, you know, when I had people come out and give me quotes, I learned some interesting things, and that a lot of quotes, they would come, they kind of, well, they quoted, you know, I thought not enough panels, because I already had an idea what I want size wanted. Or they quoted a little bit lower price, because I know that a lot of times, you know, it costs more than you think it is time to get everything in. Mm-hmm. And I wanted the microinverters instead of string for various reasons. And I wanted so many panels, and I added in, I wanted what's called a critter guard, keep squirrels from chewing up the wires. And I also knew I had to change my breaker box, because this house, 50-year-old house, I had a 40 amp breaker box. I needed a 200, which meant moving all that electric to the outside of the house. And it was something I needed to do anyway. So that was just all folded in, and Green Mountain Energy, they did it. The installer did it. First, I was thinking I had to go find an electrician to do that, and then do, but no, they did it all together. Whereas they did also getting the permits from the city and everything. So it was really easy for me to work with them. And they just, all along, they worked with Encore, and Encore had sent me contracts to sign. It just went very smooth from beginning to end. And I wasn't surprised.
What city do you live in?
I live in Dallas proper.
Okay. And so you actually have to put the breaker box on the outside.
It has to be on the outside of the house, or it has to be in the garage. It cannot be in the closet anymore.
Okay.
So I switched it to the outside of the house from that closet. And when the pictures, when you'll see it's there next to the Enphase, which is for the things, next to the smart meter, all together in one.
Let's see.
And I put a lock on it too, because I knew on the outside of the house, I didn't want people to come along and turn my power off to break in. So if you see the house on, if you see what she has, that's the Enphase box. I opened it up just so you see the inside of it. And that's kind of that comes from the microinverters down to here, so that on my laptop or computer at any time of day, I can look and see what's going on. It gives me the status, you know, if anything not working or whatever. Because now a string instead of a microinverter means that if one goes down, they all go down. Micro inverters like little computers on each solar panel, and you can designate what's going on at any time in any single one. If one goes down, they're all still good.
So have you had any issues where something's gone down or been lower than normal? Not
at all.
Okay.
Now I know that these are brand new panels, so something shouldn't go wrong in the beginning. Down the way that may, but I did notice once when I was at work that like I wasn't getting any power from anything at all. And it was just happened to be one of the electricians I was working on it didn't turn the power back on the solar panels. So I called him up and yelled at him for that. He said, okay, just let's go to the switch. I said, you remember to turn my solar panels back on? I was like, all depressed and get a day. So anyway, but you see the bigger panel out there is that's the circuit breaker box switch. And I put a lock on the bottom of that so people can get into it. Encore also came out, put me a new smart meter in here. And the smart meter basically can tell you whether you're giving electricity to Encore or you're getting it. Because the way I'm set up, you can set up to be independent, or you set up to be part of the overall grid, so that I'm getting electricity from Encore at times at night. I'm generating it and give them my excess during the day. They give me a credit on my bill, and that's how it works out. And some states have net metering, some don't. So if I didn't have net metering, I'd be giving them my excess electricity and getting nothing for it. In that case, I'd want to have a battery. So
do you want me to flip over to any particular slide, or?
I don't think so. Go back to the house slide. This is.
I have a question for Jim.
Go for it.
Can I interrupt?
Yes, please do.
Ellen here. I have Enphase inverters, micros. I have never turned the power off on that switch, on that disconnect switch. I've never flipped the switch because I'm afraid that I'll have to make all my the Envoy will lose its mind, or I'll have to,
Okay, that's a good point. Can I address that? Because
So,
I switched my Wi-Fi. And when I did, I said, okay, now when I switch it, is it going to be a problem with the onboard? And they said, no, and it really was not. I had no problem on it. But I think that line is just, if something went long, you can shut the power off automatically. I haven't ever really used it either. So
you've actually pulled the lever on that solar breaker box.
Yeah.
And then put it back up and notice no change except maybe
Right. Actually, it was turned off. The guy that came, the electrician came out, he turned it off to work and some didn't turn it back on. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, come on, And I was sitting there thinking, well, I don't need electricity today. I'm like, but anyway, so yes, I had turned it off, turn it back on. So.
All right. Well.
And when they changed out the router, they came, I had Spectrum come out to get a much higher speed. It wasn't a problem, whatever at all. You just connected back. And I had to go back and reset the little box, the envoy in there, the switch in there for that as well a little bit. I think I turned that off and back on, so.
Yeah, I'm a big believer in Murphy's Law. So. Thank you.
Well, I have to say everything's gone smooth. And I know, I always wondered, I thought, now when this thing switches over, am I going to see anything in the house? But, it's at like 6 o'clock, all of a sudden the power's going to shut down and switch back over. But it's just seamless all the way through. So I have not had any problem with that whatsoever on the roof. And I think the only thing I would have another day was one of the little critter guards came, the wind ripped it off on the sides and flipped it right over the house. And I thought, wow, so I had to get back and glue that back on. But otherwise, it's been all pretty seamless.
And this provides how much power to your house? 50% of your kilowatts?
Probably 100% would be my thought.
I'm actually not breaking even, but I'm getting more credits than I thought I would.
So you're making more than you use.
Yes, and okay, yes, true. Now I'm one person and a cat, so it's
right.
Not like I have a family full of kids running everything, but I have a lot of computer equipment. I have stuff. I'm trying not to run TVs in every room all the time like I used to, just for the noise. But for the most part, I'm doing okay. And the difference is too, I noticed I use about 10, maybe 15 kilowatt hours during the day in spring or fall. And when that air conditioner comes on, it uses about another 20 to 30 kilowatt hours. Now, see, this is the graph showing. Now, this is a day back in March. You notice the blue is the being generated, and those little ups and downs. It should be a bell curve, a smooth bell curve, but those are like clouds that came through. You see on the blue, and then the brown is at night. That's what I'm basically using. And usually in the summertime, you can see little bumps in the little brown because I know that, that's the air conditioner coming on. Or this
how much extra you're actually producing there in March compared to what you use.
Now, in summertime, though, the same thing. If you go down to, that's August, and that day was, I'm probably doing the stoves running here and some of the dryer and things like that. During the day, there's little clouds, so it's not quite perfect. But unless the temperature gets up to above the hundreds, I'm still like breaking, even getting like 35 kilowatt hours in the summertime. In fact, in the summertime, those days are longer. I'm usually getting up to 38 or longer kilowatt hours. So it's, I'm doing pretty well. I can't complain.
But you have a fairly small house and there's just one person living there. You don't have teenage daughters, for example.
No, I don't. I do have, it's funny. I do have a friend who'll come over and, take care of the house and then he'll do his laundry because on the smart meter, I think, my gosh, what went on that day? I went there and okay. So yes. Now I do have gas heat for gas for my water. So heat for water. So that makes a difference, but.
So here's a question. Let's say it says, question to ask after he describes his system performance. Please speak to the expected cleaning needs of your solar panels. Did they advise annual or springtime, and have you noticed if it has an effect on efficiency?
Well, everything I've read is basically you just kind of wash them down and don't get up there with Windex and scrub them or whatever and so forth. So I don't think there's too much. I did do a test on them because supposedly I thought, if they're hotter, they won't generate as much. So I went in the middle of the day and I sprayed them down with water. And I just spray them down with water to wash the dust off. And that I'll do that from time to time, but I haven't had a problem with cleaning them, been a problem at all. And I don't think you're really supposed to use any kind of cleaner on them. Just basically wash them off with water for the most part. Now there may be some other things they eventually say to clean them with differently. I'll just have to find out. But in terms of cleaning, I haven't any issue at all.
I guess it depends, exactly what your neighborhood is like. You could possibly have some trees that emit a lot of pollen in the spring or
But
something.
you do get dust on them, and I can wash the dust off, by just spraying water on the side and getting that off. Some of the tests I did in the middle of the day when it's hot, just to see if it would change the graph charge. Then, now I also put a critter guard around them to keep the squirrels out, because my big fear was the squirrels get in there and will chew the wires under it, and then I wasn't about to have that. So that was a thing, but I haven't had a problem with that yet. Now it's kind of been a learning curve since I've been to this first year of doing this, so I'm discovering things as I go, and I've been pleasantly surprised for the most part. So. And I can go up on the roof too in the middle of the day, and I can touch those panels, and they're not that hot at all, if the sun's been shining. So that absorbs the heat from the sun with electricity. It also keeps heat off the roofs, and it has, since it's above the roof a little bit, it gets the airflow. So I think that side of the house doesn't get quite as hot as it used to on one side. So.
And you did do a little bit of insulation or something, right?
I did add insulation, and along with the circuit box, because the more I could stick onto that contract on solar energy was bigger my credit will be off my tax bill. And that's a credit right off the tax, believe me.
Yeah, so that's a good segue. How did you decide to pay for these panels?
I just used my own money. I didn't want to do a loan. You could do a lease, but with a lease, I can't get a tax credit. And then if you sell the house, the lease is kind of part you have to sell with it. I just basically used my own money and paid for it. I skipped getting a bank loan because I didn't want to mess with that, because I wanted to go get it done. And so I paid for it out of pocket, basically. So
were you able to get any incentives?
Yes.
Well, you got the federal tax credit.
Good. I'm glad you said that. Now, when the federal tax went from end of this last year, it was 30. This year, it's 26. So I'll get a 26% off. That's 26% off my taxes based on the price. So of course, the higher the price goes up, the more I get off my tax. Problem is, I knew it had to be
that's called a pernicious incentive, I think.
Well, I think of it as money anyway. My sister keeps saying I make too much money, as I pay too high taxes. I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Quit? So basically, I decided that, well, I do that. And plus, Encore gives out these incentives or rebates or whatever money at the beginning of the year, and they go fast. And so by lopping it over into 2020, I thought, okay, that gives me plenty of time to put these panels on to make sure everything's done right, so I don't rush it. And then I could apply for the Encore money, which Green Mountain did that. They did application for that. They got it. They did my permits, all that. I didn't have to do any of that stuff. So the only thing I did was sit down with them and design a model. I said, I kind of want these here. And they said, well, it's really better to have this here. And so, they worked with me quite a bit, and I got to know them. And I kind of had a good feeling about them. Whereas some of the other quotes I got from people, I kind of thought they were trying to lowball me, and they were really talking about, you save this much money and then recoup here in 10 years. I'm like, no, I'll have to take 15 years to recoup. And I want to do it.
How did you find these other people who gave you quotes? Just online?
I just went online and did that and just found them. The thing I found with Good Faith Good Faith Energy was a fluke. I went to the North Texas Renewables Energy Group. They meet once a month, and I just happened to run into Mo. I was talking to somebody else, and he chased me down the parking lot. We got talking. That's how I know about their business, and I got a good feeling that these people, know what they're talking about, and they're being realistic. So I know that projects like this oftentimes cost more than you think they will, and if you try to get by on the cheap, you're hurting yourself. So, and I'm usually a pretty good judge of people. I get burned every now and then, but I'm usually a pretty good judge of people. So.
So let's see, you haven't really had any issues with the system.
Yeah, and I haven't had long enough, but we'll see. But for the most part, it's been pretty smooth and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I've learned that being up on the roof is a great place to be, because you can see it below, high and far, and no one sees you up there, and it's a lot of fun. So, but I also thought maybe I'll put in maybe set panels. If I want in the garage, I decide to have an electric car, I may do that, and then I could charge the car in the garage and so forth.
Yeah, a lot of people really think solar and electric vehicles are a great combination. So
yeah, well, and it's curious to see how things will go in the future. The panels supposedly last about 25 years, and who knows, in 10, 15 years, things could be very different. So we'll see.
So here is a new question. It says, when grid electricity blackout occurs due to weather issues, were you able to use solar to meet your needs? If not,
No.
are there ways to put your solar to backup?
Yes, and no, and yes. No, basically the way I did is I'm part of the grid. So I'm giving them all my electricity. I'm using some, they give me a credit. If I wanted to be off the grid, or if I wanted to have some way to do that, and that's a possibility, I would need to add a battery to the system. And so when I installed the system, I said, make it where I can put a battery on this. It won't be a problem. I won't have to come back and reconfigure it. So that was a little bit part of, they went back and I, a little bit more on the contract to add that. So yes, I can add a battery. If that were the case, then I could be off the grid. I could use it differently. And if the power went out, I would still have power. So that may come in another year or so before the tax credit runs out if I add a battery on, but we'll see, because batteries aren't cheap. I think the Tesla battery is like 7,000 for the top line.
Yeah, I was going to say, did you get any quotes for batteries at all?
I just looked at it. I really didn't seriously consider it. When I do, I'll maybe I'll think differently. So I don't know if I really need a battery backup. Is that worth it to me? In a year from now, I may say yes. The power doesn't go out here enough that's really a problem. And ironically, the power goes out around here. My house and like 3 other houses all stay on because we're on some weird.
Oh, you're one of those people. Okay.
Yeah, because I'm over there working. Everyone's calling me, "Is your power out?" No, I'm got TV, everything running fine. So, but anyway.
So for people who are shopping around for solar, if you ask questions of the different installers you spoke to, or maybe you didn't, but did most of them know about batteries and install them? A few years ago, only a few people would do batteries.
I don't know per se, because I really didn't even get into the batteries until later and talk about, I think Good Faith knew about them and could sell them and set them up. I did with the quotes that I got, and when they do the quotes, basically you'll do it online and they kind of go on Google and they look at kind of your house and your trees. And what in mine, since all the trees were kind of some of them had been torn down, whatever, it's very different now than what's called Google. And I had one contractor came back and they went to his engineer and they said, it won't work. You had too much shade. And I'm like, really? You didn't want to try to sell it to me, even, So I said, fine. I said, I'll show you I can make it work. So, and that's why I added like a couple more panels to cover myself. And I've been really pleased ever since. So, and it was kind of I just wanted to do something different. So I did buy me a new sports car. I kept my old Volvo, and this is my new sports car. I'm sitting on top of the roof. So I figure God will reward me in the afterlife too.
So how long did the actual installation process itself take?
The whole thing took 2 days, but that's because they had to move the electrical panel to outside of the house. And you have to cut all your power off, and that takes about a full day. And then they came back, and the next day, man, they put the whole thing on. It was on the roof and ready to go. And then after that, it was like a couple more adjustments had to be made and so forth. But it takes about a day to do, depending on the size, about a day to do the whole thing. But I told them, I said, stretch it up to 2 days if you need it. So I'd rather you do it right than, rush.
So you said you specifically liked the Panasonic panels.
Well, that's what they sold. I looked up Panasonics for top of the line and so forth. And so I went with what they had, recommendation. Now I see someone just talk about homeowner association. Basically, by law here in Texas, the homeowner association cannot deny you for putting solar panels on the roof. And if anything, I think it enhances the value of the house. And I was all like, I'm gonna be the first in my little, I've been president, I'm still on the board. I was trying to get off the board, sometimes, but they won't let me. And I was gonna be the first in my association, only come down, oh, 2 other people already have panels. I'm like, oh, bummer. So anyway, but no, there's no problem with the homeowner association. They give you crap, say, here's this Texas law saying that we have to install it. And I don't see why they would have a problem with it, because it really helps. Let's see.
Well, I think you just, yeah. Oh, that's what you were answering.
It's a 2012 Volvo S60. I love it. Don't even think of trying to buy it from me. I'm keeping it until I get an electric car. The Volvo keeps wanting it back, but it's wonderful. I can do 110 down the tollway and it stays just stable. I didn't do that very long, but I had to test it out once. So anyway, it's the first car I ever bought that I bought a car for love and something I wanted. Everything else was practical up till that time. So. And
I think we've got neighbors down the street that had a Saab when we moved here 30 years ago, and they still have it.
Yeah. Well, also, in Twilight, the vampires were driving Volvos. So, I looked at it that way. And it's like BMW people I'm crazy about, but Volvo people I kind of like. So it's just a different temperament. So that's just a joke.
So back to your HOA, that's sort of interesting. So did you submit the application to yourself?
Yeah. No, I went to them. I said, I'm putting panels on the roof, and I said, I know, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna have them, and then he said, well, I think the other house with that, oh yeah, they have panels in theirs, they have panels on theirs. So I thought, oh, okay, so I'm not
Well,
gonna.
was there any pushback from them at all, or were
They
they?
had to sign something and send to Good Faith or whatever. And so I
Okay.
went to Ricardo. I said, "Here, sign this, please," and send it to him. And it's just a formality. And so I had to go get it because I told him, I said, "Well, I'm on the board and so forth." But he said, "Yeah, we just have to get it signed." And good, there's like permits you have to do with the city, and there's a Encore had come out and do their thing, and so and Good Faith took care of all that. They had the step by step come out and do it. So and they planned it all. I have to admit that I didn't have to do too much except watch. And I wish I had kind of made a video of the whole process when from beginning.
Yeah.
But it was.
Well, I think you may have found it less painful than some just because you had educated yourself beforehand.
Well, that, and I think some of it's just the installer did well, because I know some people have had a installer that we know that went bankrupt, and if I didn't have to deal with a bank loan, things of that nature, because that would have been, did you have the loan yet? Pay a certain point. And so I think all the stars aligned there and so forth. So
Well, back to the different installers you spoke to, did they offer many different kinds of ways to pay for it, or were they very limited?
they just gave me quotes on it on the panels, and then I guess you'd have to go out and search for the money yourself. You'd have to get a loan from this bank or whatever. And I was kind of pushing for time for time, because I have to get, in order to get the credit, I had to get it operational. And I had only really a couple months, and I didn't think time we ordered the stuff, it'd be operational by the end of 2019. So I said, let's shoot for 2020. We got plenty of time, and I'll do that, and then everything else will be done.
So here's a fresh question. It says, not to put you on the spot, what do you see by way of one or two key disadvantages of solar energy?
Well, your insurance may go up a little bit. Mine went up about $200. If you have a problem with the roof, you're going to have to pay for someone to come fix that, for the panels. And, or if you have to fix the roof, when it gets older, they'll have to take the panels off to refix the roof. Mm-hmm. Another thing might be if, somehow one of those squirrels get in there, chew the wires, there's a charge on that. And I kind of wondered too, it's like, okay, when I have these panels on, is it going to be, it's like 6 o'clock, and when it switches over, is the power going away? It's all been pretty seamless. So I'm sure that I'm not naive enough to think that I'm not going to have some problems a little bit further down the road with some of it. But for the most part, it's been okay. I know some of the trees are going to grow a little bit more in size. I'll have to do a little more cutting. And, but the other disadvantages, I don't know. Everything's been pretty smooth. I can't think of any major disadvantages. Mm-hmm. Now I think properties in the houses sell pretty well, that do have solar, because you can say, well, you don't have electric bill for the most part. So, but you just need to, that's the difference of the lease. You can get a lease on it too. Instead of having to go to bank loan and buying it, you could have it leased. The problem with that is if you sell the house, then whoever sells the house, they also then have to assume that lease or whatever.
It just complicates the whole deal.
Yeah, and so that I figured if I buy it, then if I sell the house, then they just get the benefit of the solar panels go with it.
Yeah.
And the houses here are going up in value so much that it's even, well, my taxes keep going up every year like crazy. So
do you feel like this has enhanced the value of your house?
I think so. But now the prices keep going up so much that you can't even determine anymore. But it does, and I think there's also the law too, is the increased value it does in the house, you don't have to kind of pay tax on or whatever. I saw that too in one. There's a rule on that. Yes. I can't speak to how that functions, but it does.
Well, it's just when they do the assessment, the assessor is not allowed to add the value of the solar panels to the house.
Right. And usually when the assessor comes, you just tell them the house is in terrible shape, foundation's awful and everything.
Right.
Just get that price way down there. So, so I shouldn't say that, but, and I'm trying to think what else I wanted to say on this. How much time do we have?
Oh, we're at 12:30 just now, but like I said,
yeah. And if anyone wants to come
there aren't
visit,
any more talks until 1. So if anybody else has any other questions,
I want to say too is if anyone wanted to come visit, I'm more than happy to show off the house. So I'm, that's not a problem. I'm not that worried that, you can stand, plenty far away from me and so forth. And I'll let you crawl on the roof and look at it and so forth. And the one good thing too I love is also on my iPad and on my others, I can see what's going on with my smart meter. I can see what's going on with the solar panels. And, and all day long, sometimes I'll look at it and, I'll do charts and this and see what power's going on. And I can see what's using electricity at night, and, what's basically, how much I'm using here. The dryer uses a lot, and the other appliances do and don't. So, but for the most part, it's been good.
Mm-hmm.
Now, see, then you look at this chart she showed right there. See in the middle of those spikes, I say, oh, that's the air conditioner. And then you can see in the morning when I get up about 6:37 how it goes. Then the system, then the system takes off, and then at night you see those are supposed to be the TV, the stove, the oven, things of that nature. So, and that's only like the touch point is like 1 kilowatt. And usually in the summertime, it's spring and fall with no air conditioning, I'm getting about 10 to 15 kilowatt hours a day. When the air conditioning runs, I get up to about 35, 40 kilowatt hours a day. So the air conditioning is like double the amount of everything else now. That's a rainy day.
Something crazy going on in March, it looks like, on March 7th.
That was a big, I think I was really cooking that night about stove. I think it was
St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah. And so you can see there it's low. That must have been a cold, cloudy day in March.
Okay, so let's see, it looks like we have another question from Michael Fladmark. Would the HOA allow you to build a solar carport to provide at least 4 kilowatts you will need to recharge your Volvo in a reasonable time period?
Probably, it won't be the solar panel that give you a problem. It'll probably be the carport.
Well, I was going to say, that's what would they let you build the carport?
The structure you build it on, but they can't stop you by law. They can't stop you from building a solar panel on that. And I always thought that's a great way to build a roof. You just have the solar panel itself as a roof, and companies ought to give everybody a covered parking and just build solar panels out there for covered parking. I don't see why that would be a problem. And I would think that would actually be very beneficial. I see that coming down the road, but maybe put 2 panels on the side of the house over here where it could charge, if I had electric cars. So,
all right. Well,
I have a question.
Go for it.
Have you ever thought about, if you do want to get electric car, to maybe put some panels in the yard?
Well, I don't know. The association might get on my case about that. I'd probably just put them on the side of the roof over by the garage and just run the wires down to the garage.
Okay.
The way I have it, I have a south roof on one end, and it's turned actually over the garage. There's another south facing roof. I could do it over there. And and even with the trees on both sides of those 2 tall trees, I still get with that peak hour. The peak hours are that 4.8 at the point where the sun is at an angle, kind of triangle, where you get the most intense sun. Later in the evening and early morning, you don't get as much. So I can still be over on the other side and get plenty of sun for that to charge the car.
Yeah, because south facing is the best, yeah.
Yeah. And now I also too, I told him, I said, now if you put it on north side, instead of on the wall, if you kind of raise up the panel so it's almost flat, then you still get the benefit of like a south panel. You could raise it up like that, but they didn't go for that. They're still just flat to the roof. So
much as I like solar panels, that's not the most attractive way to put them on your roof.
Yeah. True, but I don't think it's any worse than having I guess a antenna or people who paint their house bright blue and you have to go around and tell them that's not going to work. I don't want a flagpole in that yard. Put it on the side of the thing. So, many times I've had to go tell neighbors, sorry about this, sorry about that. So yeah, you'd be surprised though. I think I put the panels on the roof. They're not really necessarily noticeable that much, and I think it's I think it enhances the value of the house. So
I said no, they're not very noticeable actually.
No.
Bring that back. So.
And being on the roof is a lot of fun too. And see, if you notice it there, I have a landing pad on there for a drone at the very top, which is the fireplace. But it's kind of flat, so I can have my drone on there and then fly it around the place just to keep tabs on the neighbors and so forth for safety purposes.
Of course.
Now you see the side of the trees there. I had 2 Bradford pear trees. On the right side, you see that live oak where the branches got ripped out by the storm. I did have 2 Bradford pear trees right there on the other side of that fence, and they had got old and so I cut those out, which helped on the sun come inside, and of course it helped those the live oaks there that, could get more sun. So, but the sun it's still enough during the day that I get plenty of sun. There's another big tree there over on the left, which if I could just chop off a little bit of the top of it, it would be good. So,
And I think you said in the previous session that wasn't sure if it was the installer or the fire department that made you rearrange.
now the installer, they kind of wanted, if you look on the far ends, there were some panels. I thought I'd like 4 or 5. I thought maybe put on the other south roof, have a second array or something. But they went and just went ahead and put them on the end because I upped it to 20 instead of 18 that they recommended just to cover myself in case I wasn't going to get enough power. But obviously I'm getting more than I thought I did. So, I can either get a battery, store it, or I could just use more electricity in the house. I could run all the televisions after all. So, but I've been really pleased. I have to admit, it's, and I went right through this project, never thinking to just kind of like get that, I don't know if I want to do this. I just did it. And after a while I thought, wow, I really just, for the first time I just did this because it was, it was a major outlay of money, so forth. Mm-hmm. But it's, I'm happy with it.
Well, it's cool these days that you really can get 330 watt panels. I mean, I've only been sort of interested in solar for 10, 11 years. And back when I was first interested, it was exciting to have a 200 watt panel. So. Yeah,
I can't imagine 15 years from now, maybe they make the same size panel, but it would be that much more electric. Because the truth of the fact is, we're going to need a lot more electricity in the future. If you go to electric cars and everything else, it's just going to be, now, whether it's going to be in houses like this, I don't know. They may be more, because they take the tax credit away, that'll have a little bit of effect on it. So you may have more solar farms, places out there where they'll generate electricity and run it. I think too, the technology is still not there in batteries and in transmission of electricity. So there's still a long way to go to that. So, but having electricity is great here. And then I guess if my power went out, I could have it where I could kind of live off the, the grid in summertime. Because I learned one year that the power goes out and the air conditioner's out in summertime, no reason to stay in the house. You won't be able to sleep no matter what.
Well,
I have a question. You had mentioned that on days where you use more electricity in the house, the panels put out more, whereas on days that you don't use so much, it's a lot less. But since they're all hooked to the grid, won't they produce the same amount each day, whether you're using it or not, because it's feeding to the grid?
Well, it depends on the weather, basically. And if it's a rainy day, and then and it depends on the year, because the sun in the summertime is going longer for the house, so that there's a few more days you get it. If you go down, let's see, that's consumed. See if the average there of March is about 15, and then over that number in August, it's like 38. So I'm generating more in August, but mainly because the track of the sun is longer over the house than in the winter time. So there is a little bit of that, but not much. You see 30 versus 38 between March and August, but then I'm only using 15. August is 39 mainly because the air conditioner's running. That's one thing. If they could make a thing where magnetically you could slow down the molecules in a room to change the room from hot to cold, that would be a lot better, because the way we do air conditioning these days is pretty inefficient. But if you go scroll, there's a smart meter on there if you see, and usually I had to do the math. I finally had to sit down and figure it out. But during the day, now if you go down here, see this, it shows 26 here. That 26 is what I'm generating on the panels, and then out of that, you subtract out what I'm using during that period because it comes off the panels. Then that's what's the difference between that gets sent to Encore is the amount of electricity I've generated for the day. And I think if you go further down a little bit there, Lisa, you see, am I wrong? Okay, that's kind of, see at the very bottom, I summed this up because I have to do this in an Excel spreadsheet because the way they do it, they don't do a chart with generated. But this shows like 13 hours I consumed during the day or at night when the panels weren't running. The 1966, that's what I've reported back to Encore. That's different 26 because I used 7 kilowatt hours during the day while I was working, while the panels were basically generating stuff. We're generating electricity. So, my daily consumption, the far it is, I came up with 1962. That's what I used for the day, that day. And then, but I report back to them, basically 29. So they would give me a credit for the day, since in addition to the 13, take that out of the 20, out of the 19, the difference between that is I still have a credit. And that's in September when it's still a bit warm, And it really, I didn't get to the point where I was needing credits until August when it was like over 100 and something. So I was a little bit surprised that I could have had fewer panels, but this way, like more electricity means I could turn on all the TVs and run all the lights and everything, and I don't have to worry about it. So, because this summer I was home working, because normally when I go downtown to work, you know, the heat goes, you know, electric bit fills up, and I mean, the thermostat goes up, so I don't use much electricity during the day. But when I hear with all the computers running and so forth, the cooking, then it's different. But I'm still way ahead of the curve. I'm still sitting with a $200 credit on my electric bill. So. And the Green Mountain, they carry it over to the year, and if I were to leave, they would cut me a check for that amount of money. So
Okay, but I think what I was asking was, even though if you're not home and things turn off and your load is real light, the panels still put out maximum power at that particular time. It's just feeding back to the grid, right?
Yes. Yes. The only difference they wouldn't if it's been a cloud cover or whatever. If you go back up there to a regular day, which I should get 38 or whatever. And in the month of July and August, I was getting I got to one megawatt for the whole month. It got to be this fun thing to see if I could make it, you know, oh man, it's cloudy today. You know, I've got 2 days left and so forth. I did it. Now it's kind of dropping back down in August, September. So we've had, you know, some more cloudy days, more rainy days. So,
right.
And, you know, you even
The reason I was asking this, because I have a battery-based system, and if my batteries are full and I'm not using a whole lot of electricity at the house, I see my panels production start going way down because the power has nowhere to go. And then when I turn stuff on in the house, then the production comes back up.
Really?
In your case, they're producing full power because it's going to the grid.
Well, he has an infinite sink.
Well, I'm basically part of the grid, basically, because I'm with electricity. I give them my electricity, I use some, and they just give me a credit back. So I didn't realize that. I will say too that I've gotten some electricity off the moonlight at night, just a fraction. But I noticed one night it was full moon. Cool. Oh man, it's registering here on this thing. So I thought that was kind of cool. So yeah, I didn't realize that. Maybe you're right. I guess if the power has nowhere to go, what would it do? I guess it would just generate less because it.
Well, I guess the battery is protecting itself, right?
But the battery's full, then what does it do? So, you know.
Well, the charge controller throttles back, so it doesn't produce any more power.
Well,
unless
maybe
I turn the load on.
Yeah. Okay.
You need to have more parties, you know, and have more wild parties, so you have to use lights and electricity and so forth, and so you just being too frugal and conservative there. So.
Right.
Because I'm thinking now, like, oh, I could turn more lights on. I could, you know, and I was joking with, because I had a joke that said, you know, you could buy a solar dryer. I mean, and it's cheap. There's no moving parts. It's very mobile. And then I show a clothesline I have out back. So I've been having fun instead of running the dryer, I've been putting towels and stuff out on the clothesline. And so I was always worried.
We have one of those.
I was worried about the birds pooping on it. That wasn't the problem. I found it's not a problem with birds. It's a problem with little spiders get onto it, you know. And one time in bed, I was thinking, oh, geez, were these outside? You know, oh my God. So I'm terrified. I mean, even the tiniest spider makes me run for the hills. So snakes, I don't mind. Spiders, I hate. So.
Well, we should
for a non-savvy homeowner who's trying to install a rooftop, unlike you're well educated. What are some of the warranty type issues that people would experience, and what are your suggestions in terms of how to handle those situations?
Well, I guess I have just a regular warranty from from Good Faith Energy. And it's just the basic warranties on the panels and things of that nature. I didn't get any kind of excess warranties on it because I'm kind of banking the panels are fairly good and, you know, stable. But it's like anything else. I guess I could buy probably a warranty on it, but you know, how much is that going to break for what they do before they replace? So,
did you pay attention to how long a warranty the Panasonic panels have?
No, I need to go back and look at that on those. And it's sort of, I think it gets the question of like when you go to buy appliance at the store, you know, they'll sell you an extended warranty. I mean, it can be good if the thing breaks, and it's just a balance. And sometimes is it really worth buying an extended warranty? Same thing with a car. You know, when I bought my car, I got a 2-year more warranty on it. But the warranty I got on my tires, I think I really kind of was a waste. So I don't know. I can't speak too much to warranties, but I just stuck with the regular warranties on the panels and figured I'd pay if something had to be fixed. And I'm hoping that, the quality of it will be okay.
So your system supplier didn't offer it as an option?
They may have, and I just didn't look into that, to be honest with you. I was
Most
busy.
of the tier one products that a company, an installer like Good Faith Energy is installing, have production guarantees of 25 years. Some are actually coming out to 30 years now. As far as they're guaranteed to produce at least up to 80, if not 85% of the capability when you initially bought the modules.
Right.
The inverters, like the brand new inverters that you have on the micro inverters, they're guaranteed also for 25 years.
Oh, that long? Okay.
String
Yeah, think about it.
inverters.
In 25 years, technology is going to be a little different,
Yeah, but the thing is that
I
you
know.
don't have to replace them.
I understand.
The string inverters are normally, they sometimes have to be replaced after 12 to 15 years.
Mhm.
And so, but yours are guaranteed, yours are warranted for 25 years to match the module manufacturers.
Well, one of the issues
But
that
the SC inverter that you're collecting everything into, because you have you have in-phase, right?
Yes.
So an optimizer where it's collecting everything, that may be something that you have to get an extended warranty on, right? Workforce performance, that's the guarantee that your installer gave you, that he'll probably guarantee it for 3 to 5 years.
Right.
As far as the installation itself, water leaks, if you want to put in the squirrel guards, right?
Yes, I did.
So, those are, some people have to come back and do that at a later stage, and then that's warranted,
Well, I'm thinking too, like the warranty on the in-phase, the box, it's like I could buy a warranty and it may be fine and it may not be worth it. Or if I do that, how much it would cost to replace it. So it's kind of a balance between, is that warranty sometimes worth the price of that or whatever?
Well, just remember that no matter what, the installer still has to come out and evaluate, do the replacement and all that. And so it's a combination of, depending on what happened with the piece of equipment, how that has to be paid for, right?
Right.
The warranty is for the replacement of the device itself. And sometimes if you read the fine print, it may include, but most likely not, the cost of the installer to come back out. And that's part of the agreement you have with your—
Or it could have a depreciation age on it too. After so many years, you don't get as much back. So it's always, I think with buying a warranty, it's always a balance between, is it really valuable or not? Because like insurance, sometimes it's a waste of money, but when you need it, it's great. So, when a roof got torn up, the insurance company paid for a whole new roof. So, I can't complain about that. So anyway.
I qualified my question by stating that for a non-technical type guy, how does he follow up on warranty issues? And secondly, is there a good after sales service is that a requirement you put in your contract, or what did you do?
I guess in terms of research, like I did, I just went online and just started reading everything I could to familiar myself with the vocabulary and what they were.
No, you did. I'm asking in general. People are enthused about a solar rooftop installation, and then they have not done any research, but they see that it has some benefits and they sign on.
Right.
So in situations like that, warranty issue, how do they follow up? And secondly, does it make sense to put in some requirements that the guy who sold it to you probably comes and inspects every so often?
Yeah. Well, the thing is true is, those are the questions you have to kind of ask. It had to be a list to know, okay, what the warranty, ask them about what warranties they have. And naturally, if you're really concerned with that, always get that in the contract. Always have that written in the contract. Because that was what I went to law school, and the thing is that always get it in writing. And that's like things with emails. If you do that, they send back email, they did this and this and this, make sure you have those. But that's like, you have to ask. And I tried to think as many questions as I could ask. I didn't ask too much about warranty. So I thought, okay, the panels have a warranty, and I didn't do the other. But, like you say, the only way to do is just ask questions on that and see what they offer on it. And just
I don't want to break up a good discussion, but our ground rules are we're supposed to cut off after 20 minutes extra because I don't want to bump into the next session. But
Well,
I want to
could
thank
follow
you
up
so
on
much,
that
Jim.
too. So, you know, if we have kids' questions, we can follow in on them. And anyone who
All right.
wants to come visit is welcome to come visit and talk to me later.
All right.
Goodbye.
Thank you again.
Bye.
Bye.